And those individuals who would testify are subject to being questioned, cross-examined, or challenged by you and your attorney. That's called the right of confrontation. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
You have the right of appeal. That's after everything is said and done, you receive punishment, whatever. At that point, you would have the right to, you and your attorney or individually would have the right to demand that a higher court review the official record, the evidence, everything about this proceeding, this trial. If you chose to do that, you'd have to be careful because you have time limitations. You have form and substance that is required in the paperwork, the documents wherein you ask for an appeal. But nonetheless, you have the right of appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
I beg your pardon?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also, you have the right to demand that this proceeding be held in an open public forum. That means that you could demand that we go, all of us go into the courtroom, but we're not doing that right now because of the COVID pandemic. As such, in order to proceed with this plea bargain, it was required that you review and agree and sign an agreement that's called consent to video conference. This proceeding is on YouTube, but nonetheless, you have the right to demand an open public courtroom. You understand you have that right?
Yes, sir.
Just so you know, the state has that same right also on the open public courtroom. So both of you guys have that right. Now, in order to proceed with your plea agreement, you had to review and sign documents. Those documents, did you review them and sign them with the help and counsel or guidance of your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions about those documents?
No.
All right, among the documents we covered a while ago was the consent to video conference. You reviewed that and signed it?
Yes, sir.
Also, there's a document titled Defendant's Waiver of Constitutional Rights and Court's Admonitions that identifies you, and then it says in there, it acknowledges, you acknowledge that all these rights that we've talked about have been explained to you and you're aware of them. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
It asks you if you've ever had any involvement with sex offender program. It talks about the different aspects of this case, including the fact that you are aware that whatever deal you've made, it is not binding on me as a judge. As the judge, I have the ultimate authority and responsibility to say yes or no to your plea bargain. Also, I can give you any punishment within the proper legal range for the offense that you're charged with. And if I'm in the legal range, I can still give you a punishment that's greater or heavier than what you agreed to. However, the document tells you that if I reject your plea bargain, or if I give you a punishment that's greater or heavier than what you've agreed to, then in that case, the law would allow you to start all over again. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Did you see that in that document?
Yes, sir.
And you signed it.
Yes.
Also, there's a document titled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal. I have signed that as a certification where I, as a judge, say to you, you are doing a plea bargain. And because you're doing a plea bargain, you will not have a right of appeal. Did you understand that?
Yes.
And you signed it?
Yes.
All right. Now, what type of probation is he getting?
Judge, on this case, it is deferred.
All right. Mr. Carrillo, Mr. Dominguez has gotten you the best type of probation you can get. It's called deferred adjudication probation. That means ultimately, at the beginning at least, you will not have anything to do with the jail because any jail sentence or agreement would suspend the jail. On probation, that's what happens. Any jail time is suspended. In a regular probation, the court will find you guilty and you will be sentenced to jail, and that sentence is probated or suspended. But in a deferred adjudication, you will enter a plea and I will not find you guilty. Instead, I will defer that. I will postpone that. And if you live up to 100%, listen carefully, if you live up to 100% of the conditions of supervision, then the case gets dismissed and you're not convicted of the charge to which you pled. If, in fact, you violate those conditions, you fail or refuse to live up to them, then the state may ask me to give you official notice, bring you in for a hearing. At that hearing, then I can enter a finding of guilt and convict you, that a conviction that follows you the rest of your life. Also, I would have access to a full range of punishment for the type of offense to which you're pleading, even if it's greater than what you agreed to. As I said, deferred is really good and beneficial unless you screw up. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, state, tell me about Mr. Carrillo. What is going to be his plea?
Judge, I believe the plea is guilty.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the car real quick.
All right, it'll be guilty, you said?
Yes, Judge. That's what the
And
paperwork says.
We'll grant him how much time deferred?
12 months deferred,
All right,
a $500 fine plus court costs. 48 community service hours, a Crime Stoppers organization fee of $50, DWI education, victim impact panel, TAP evaluation, and 6 months of ignition interlock.
And that is correct, Your Honor. That is the plea agreement.
all right. Before I decide on the punishment, Mr. Carrillo, do you have children?
No, I don't.
No children, all right. And how do you earn a living? How do you support yourself?
I work for HEB overnight.
And what do you earn? What's your income?
I make about 600 a week.
Which is roughly $15 an hour,
21.
$21 an hour.
Yes, sir. I've been there for 13 years.
All right, that doesn't mean 600 a month unless, a week.
Oh,
Unless your mathematics is bad, sir.
yeah. Yeah, 40 hours full time every week.
40 hours times $21 equals, that's 840. Just in case you forgot.
Yeah, but that's like that's like after like my taxes and like health benefits and stuff.
You make $3,639.72 a month gross. All right. Officially, you have pled guilty.
Yes, sir.
I find that there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I do not find you guilty. Instead, I'm granting you 12 months deferred adjudication.
Judge, excuse me. The computer shows that he's charged with DWI, and the paperwork shows that it's going to be a plea to obstruction of passageway.
Okay, that's why I asked what the plea deal was. Okay, State, you have a motion.
Judge, give me one moment to look at the paperwork.
And also, Judge, the paperwork says that he's pleading no contest.
Yes, that was my mistake. Force of habit, but he should be pleading guilty.
All right, well, let's back up. State, at this point, do you have a motion concerning the charge?
Yes, Judge. We're moving to waive and abandon count 1 and proceed solely on count 2.
All right, count 2, for the record, is a obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway, which is very beneficial to you that happens because it's no longer a DWI per se. To that charge of obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway, Mr. Carrillo, how do you plead to that? Don't tell me guilty. What is it? No contest is what
no.
the papers show.
Again, Your Honor, on the defense waiver constitutional rights of course admonitions, I accidentally put no contest out of a force of habit, but part of the plea agreement was to plead guilty to this offense.
Well, which one is it, State?
It's guilty, Judge.
All right, then, for the third time, Mr. Carrillo, I'm sorry. Mr. Carrillo, to the charge of obstruction, do you plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Guilty.
All right. Now, I find that your plea of guilty is sufficient to find you guilty, but I do not. Instead, I am granting you 12 months deferred adjudication, a $500 fine, plus court costs. You will do community service restitution that I'll address shortly. You will pay a one-time donation of $50 to Crime Stoppers. You will do the DWI education program, the victim impact panel. You will submit to a TAP evaluation and the recommendation subject to my approval. The recommendations, that is. You will have ignition interlock installed in your vehicle, personal vehicle, for 6 months continuously. During those 6 months, you're not to drive any other vehicle other than your vehicle with ignition interlock. Your supervisory fee will be $34 a month. Now, the community service restitution hours, I'm going to want you to do at least 60 hours.
Okay, that's fine.
That is more than what you agreed to, but I think it's appropriate. However, since I'm giving you a heavier punishment than you agreed to, you do have the right to start all over again. Do you understand?
Yes.
And do you choose to accept the increase in community service hours or not?
I accept.
All right. You will, within 1 week, come in and submit your thumbprint on the documents as required by law. And you will not leave this proceeding until you have met with Ms. Maricela Luna to start you off on the probation program.
Okay.
The conditions of probation. It is imperative that you understand that deferred adjudication, you have to live up to 100% of the conditions. And if you live up to them, the case of the charge of obstruction, you will not be convicted. It'll be dismissed. If you violate, if you fail or refuse to do what you're supposed to on the probation, then the state may ask me to bring you in after official hearing, after official notice, and have a hearing. And if, in my opinion, you deserve it, then you can look at the entire, I would convict you then, and you'd have the whole range of punishment for obstruction, which is a fine from $0 to $2,000, and jail from 0 days to 180 days. Is that all clear?
Yes, sir.
The probation conditions will be read to you by probation. You will sign them and they will put a copy in your hands. You're now excused, except that you got to visit with Ms. Luna.
Okay.
All right, now we have Mr. Brandon Diaz.
Yes, I
Yes,
see
sir.
that he is on, Your Honor.
Where'd you go, Brandon?
How's it going, sir?
Okay. We're gonna have to reset this. It is now 3:33. Patty, give him a